Okay. So, may have some viewers pop in over the next little bit, but I'm going to start the live stream. Anyone feel free to grab some tea or some water or make a comfy little spot for yourself. I guess good protocol would be to share my link. Forgive me for any little hiccups. This is a test live stream. I don't do these often, haven't done one in quite a while. I am not a tech expert, but attempting to use a new program, do this all myself. Hoping my audio is okay. Maybe changing my camera angle a little bit. Maybe sharing the link if I can find it. If I have any viewers here, feel free to give me some feedback on the audio. Let me know in the chat. Just looking for my... I already shared the stream link, so I'm just going to say we're live. This is a good chance if you've been interested in a dissolve therapy session or interested in anything that I do. If you've watched some videos, good time to ask questions. If there's only one person that shows up here, you got me all to yourself. You know, use it as like a public one-on-one session if you want. Otherwise, I have a few things that I'll dive into. I haven't taken any notes or anything. This is just, it's going to be stuff that's intrinsic to my own personal practice. It's what I would share with anyone as an introduction to this type of work. And although, especially in our body work, in the dissolve therapy body work, there's not a lot of talking going on. This is one of those moments where I'll use my voice as productively as I can and talk about the things that matter, the things that lead our attention, our awareness, our view in the right direction for a fruitful practice. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the qualities that we cultivate in this type of practice to deepen internal release. What exactly internal release is, what I mean by that, and why it's different than just relaxation. What relaxation is and the difference between relaxation and internal release, or release in general. I might just use the word release. But there are layers to this, and there are certain depths that we can access in the body. There are certain qualities that we want to develop in the mind, which then make these processes go deeper, which make release go deeper, so that we can really find this linchpin, I tend to say, of this interaction, the relationship between mind and body, and also an ability to find a stable foundation in the body, why the body matters in practice, why it's important for meditation, which will lead us into what dissolve yoga is and why that's really cool, and how dissolve yoga is different than most modern yoga, and what these qualities that we develop are for, where they lead us, so that we can go beyond the mind or see the true nature of our mind, the sort of the qualities that are innate to our soul, you could say, or whatever's beyond the mind. There is something that's deeper than our body, right? Something that's deeper than our mind. We are not our thoughts. We are not our beliefs. We're not our emotions. And we're not necessarily the body. But we don't transcend these things by ignoring them. It's a big misconception in a lot of spiritual work, or when people talk about spiritual work, is that there's this ignoring of the body, or that there's an ignoring of our emotions when we talk about releasing emotions or cultivating equanimity, stillness. I'm going to talk about why having this type of deep listening and a deep awareness is the foundation of transcending the body and mind and going really, really deep into the core of our being, and why it's not turning off. It's not ignoring reality or the body or our mind, our emotions. It is a deepened awareness of them. We are transcending them by bringing harmony to them, finding rest, release, and stability in the body, the heart, and the mind, so that we can have a harmony, like a deep regulation of the nervous system, of the body, a deep emotional regulation. And this regulation, you could say, of the mind, or this deep release of the mind, so that we can see the mind not for just all the thoughts and the chaos and the roller coaster of uh, you know thoughts and visions that we usually have going through it, but that the mind is innately, intrinsically spacious and radiant, and that when we can release the body, it teaches the mind to release. When we can release the mind or perceive release within the mind, we can actually perceive the awareness itself, that we have this knowing quality. There's a part of us which is aware of the mind, what arises and falls away within the mind. There's a part of us that is aware of the contraction that arises as a seed of a thought comes up in the mind, and there's this clinging. There's this thirst, desire, clinging, this wanting or not wanting in the mind that feeds, it draws our attention. And this is how our sense of self, our ego, is formed. This is how the layers of our being are developed from childhood onward, that we are drawn towards something, the attention is placed on something, and it magnifies whatever we put our awareness on. And it builds a story around whatever response, whatever reaction we have to whatever seed of thought comes up. And that seed of thought then stirs feelings and emotions, and those feelings and emotions stir us to action. How do we become aware of this process? And how do we become aware of the stories and loops that drive us to get caught up in our habitual reactions and responses? And what's the mechanism underlying this? The big part of all of this. And by the way, thanks, Doug, telling me it sounds good. I've been aware that my mic level is, the volume's a little low, but we'll do all right. Underlying all of this work is a deep awareness of the clinging which causes a contraction. A lot of people might talk about, in Buddhism, say, or in different traditions. Thanks, Jordan. Nice. Other Jordan on the line, other Dissolve practitioner in the chat. Welcome. Yeah, we're going to talk about this awareness of contraction. We all know the feeling of sort of tension, stress, clinging. We all know this. Jordan knows the difference between tension, stress, contraction, and that we are usually unaware of the fact that it has arisen in us. All of a sudden, we're in the reaction. We are caught up in the story. We're stuck in the emotion. We're angry, we're frustrated, we're sad. happens to us all. We have our good and bad days, our ups and downs. And for different people, it's different. We have different tendencies to react in different ways because our awareness has been feeding certain things, certain seeds in our life for so long that we've built ourselves up. We have these layers and layers of reactions and habits. And this is fine because this is how we become a human being. We can become a person, right? We have to have a sense of self. We have to have an ego. We have to, live our life and find out what it is to be human. But at a certain point, we tend to get caught up. We get caught up in this clinging and contraction and how it causes suffering. They use this word suffering, dukkha, in Buddhism, but it causes unfavorable thoughts, feelings, and habitual responses. It leads us towards action which doesn't support ourselves, doesn't nourish life, doesn't assist anything. It causes a lot of stress, tension, trauma, we say, right? These layers of stuff, when they become so tightly bound up, when the contraction becomes so strong that there's this sort of balancing act in everyday life. And in the somatic movement and healing arts, there's this talk about nervous system regulation and a lot of modern neurology and neuroscience. They talk about nervous system regulation, right? So this regulation is this ability to really, at the core of it, notice that we have become contracted or bound up in some way, and to begin to unwind, to unbind ourselves from what has bound us up, whatever we've become trapped in, and to be able to release those layers. But generally, it's this kind of back and forth. We feel some stress, some contraction, and we then let it go, or we become able to let it go because our attention is drawn towards something happens, something comes up, something challenges us. We react, we respond in whatever way we're going to, and then we go back to our life. And the more bound up we've become, the more time and the more of a process it is to be able to shift our awareness, because our awareness becomes stuck and it feeds that loop, right? And maybe it takes, many hours, many days, or weeks, or, we become so stuck that we are unable to fully remove ourselves from having our attention drawn back to that habitual contraction, the response towards this feeling, this story, these thoughts about this thing. We all know this so well. We all know that experience. And if we're really traumatized, these days people love to talk about their trauma and explore all sorts of facets of how they're traumatized and about what, and they feel and they think this about these things. We become so bound up, so trapped in these layers that it takes us quite a long time to regulate ourselves. And I found the most profound thing I've ever learned to do when it comes to being someone who, growing up, was one of those more sensitive individuals, you could say, got caught up in emotions and sensations very easily, like a lot of people out there do, I'm sure. One of the most magical things I ever learned to do was I learned to release that contraction that is at the core of how the awareness functions, how the mind feeds these stories, these loops, these thought forms, you could say. And so, therefore, cutting the root of our emotional reaction to things and releasing the body at the deepest layers. Because if we can release this contraction as it occurs, as it comes up in our experience, then not only do we catch the thought, and the thought can dissolve, we don't have to get caught up in the story. Also, the emotions around it just kind of fade away. and if they're stored within us, if we have some stored emotion, they will just kind of rise up and fade, or if they come and they go without getting trapped, without getting stuck in us so much. And the nervous system itself, it's like the nerves themselves become bound up and the fascia becomes bound up, the musculature becomes tight, binds up our structure and our skeleton. This can begin to release from the inside out, which is then greatly aided by the type of work we do in dissolve yoga. There's even just with simple stretches, it's not exactly what you do in the dissolve yoga. It's traditional hatha yoga postures that many people would be familiar with, but we approach them quite differently than most people tend to. We approach them with this quality of deep listening and this awareness of this little battle of contraction that occurs in our awareness, our mind, our body. And we approach every single posture as not a posture to hold and not something to just kind of pull and stretch the ligaments and get really, really flexible and find the perfect shape, the perfect posture. But we arrange ourselves in a way that we are setting the body up for this deep release to occur. And we come into this sort of alignment, this opening of the structure, this release of the fascia, a release of the nervous system through softening our tension. So even if as you're watching this now, we can become aware of the area of the eyes, for instance. This is usually where we begin. Are you holding excess tension in your eyes? And can you soften that even a little bit? And does it feel good to do that? This is the beginning of the process of inquiry, this investigation into release, where we become curious. Does it feel good to soften? And if I begin to soften, what is my mind doing? Does it drift away? Do I soften a little bit? And does it then drift away? Does it start thinking about releasing? And when I'm thinking about trying to let go or thinking about softening, can we feel that tension come back, even if it's very subtle? And there's this interesting fact that we can only tighten so much, right? If we tighten our eyes, we tend to look at ourselves sometimes like this. We're like, why am I doing this? Why am I tightening? Why can't I let go? This is the struggle people get caught in. This is the sort of inner battle we wage. Why am I so traumatized? Why am I so stressed? Why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling this way? Right? And we're holding on still. We're not able to let go. We're focusing on the tension, on the contraction. We're caught up in it. We're bound in it. We're trapped by it. And this area of the eyes is related very intrinsically, very deeply to the way in which we are perceiving ourselves, others, life. If you think about how you view someone you tend to not like or agree with, we tend to look at them like this, like with tension in our eyes. But if we look at someone who we're totally in love with, or a newborn baby, like a little puppy, it's like, oh, like everything, like our heart melts, our eyes soften. Like, even if we have to bring up memory and source some of this quality of warmth softening from our somatic memory, not so much conceptual, intellectual memory, but the felt memory in our body. Have you ever felt warmth? Have you ever softened into the embrace of, your mother or your grandmother? Or have you ever held a baby and like looked into a baby's eyes? Isn't that beautiful? And wouldn't we like to perceive ourselves more in that manner, with more of that quality? And can we perceive others, the world, our life, more with that quality? We come into our meditation practice or our yoga practice. Can we interact from the very, very beginning and try to sustain this quality throughout one posture, another posture, or, as one thought arises and falls away? Whatever it is that comes up that could cause a bit of clinging, a bit of contraction, a bit of tension, a bit of stress, can we soften towards it? Can we soften the way we're looking at it? Can we soften as it arises? So that in that moment we are rewiring, repatterning our ability to respond to potential stress and tension instead of with contraction, with release. Because softening is the beginning of release. In any given moment, we're either softening or hardening. We're either beginning to open, we're opening up, we're feeling open, we're feeling free, we're feeling, adaptable, or we're feeling closed, we're feeling contracted, we're feeling trapped. This is the essence of our internal experience, and it's often overlooked, I find, especially since it's so simple. There are like really cool, advanced spiritual practices out there. It's really, awesome stuff that you can do if you learn to practice well and become aware of your chi, you say, or aware of your being at deeper levels. But the foundation for being able to do all these things is to be able to rest in this state of calm abiding and to see clearly, to be not caught up in these contractions, this clinging and holding, which causes our perception to become distorted. Right? If I hold my shirt, this is what happens to our fascia, our nervous systems, and our mind. It's more and more. And the more I go, oh, why am I doing that? I notice I'm doing it, and our tendency is to like constrict more or react to it. Oh, why am I thinking that? Oh, why am I thinking that? Oh, why am I? Oh, and now I feel worse. I feel worse. We get caught up in it more and more. There's this kind of visual analogy that we tend to use of like a bullseye, the very core of our being, where if we were to rest into the very core of our being, we would feel this immense, profound inner peace, a connection to who and what we really are. If that's at the center of the bullseye, the center of our being, and there's layers of distortion, you could say, of stuff, thoughts, feelings, traumas that we have become bound up within, layered on top of that. There's physical things, there's emotional things, there's psychological things, and there's this whole blend of experiences that we've had that we've basically armored ourselves with. As soon as something disturbs our peace, we start thinking about it, and that's, we're sort of 1 to 3 layers away from our peace. We're getting away from ourselves, we're away from our center, you could say, and then, we react to that, and we have to go talk about it, and we got to go get therapy and it's 4, 5, 6, and we have to take a pill or have a drink and it's 6, 7, 8, and we start spiraling out. We start becoming caught up in the stories, the feelings, and everything, all the chain reaction of stuff that occurs because of that in our life. And we become so caught up in that we forget about who and what we are, and that it's, although difficult, probably the most difficult thing that you can attempt to do, to begin to surrender and let go and face yourself, because there's all this stuff in the way and you got to kind of wade through the muck to get back there. It is, in its essence, quite simple. The fact that every single one of these layers is this. It's this happening. You know, just like when people get angry, there's different areas of the body that relate to different qualities of emotion, different qualities of the mind. And it's like within our body, we are holding all of these fists, right? All of this tension. And we don't look at it and go, oh, that sucks. Why is it like this? And expect ourselves to be able to let go. We have to soften our awareness, soften the way we're perceiving ourselves, come at ourselves with some warmth. And as we begin to do so, almost immediately, there is some level of release. Another big barrier that people experience is that, oh, that's not enough. I want it to be gone, right? And it's like, what do you want to be gone? What is the thing, right? We're trying to like think about it like there's some emotion I need to let go of. I need to let go of these thoughts. I need to let go of this emotion. I need to let go of this trauma. But the trauma is something that happened and is not happening anymore. The thought is something that is coming and going and coming and going. The emotions, even though they might seem like they stick around or they keep coming back, it's coming, it's going. It's always changing. And it's not actually who and what you are. But you are the one holding, and you're the one who can let go. And if we soften the awareness and soften towards the body, begin to perceive and listen inwards, soften inwards, we say we begin to penetrate the body as we soften our awareness and let the mind, instead of contracted and closed, become more open, more spacious. There's this opening that occurs where we can appreciate every little bit of release, even 1%, 2%, 3% release, and notice that that is better. Every little bit of release, that's better. Not looking for perfection, for total freedom, for enlightenment, but looking for release and learning to appreciate release, softening towards yourself and allowing the attention to saturate into the body in a way that it facilitates release. And to be able to, as you maybe stretch and you have some feedback from the body, you open up an area of the body and notice, as I open up this area, where am I contracting? Am I holding anywhere? And can I soften, allow the mind to, as it touches, as it interacts with the body, softening the attention inwards, softening the attention inwards, finding release. In that moment, appreciating it. There's these 4 words that kind of embody, or they really clearly relate to this process that we use, that come from beautiful guy, Ajahn Jamnian. But his whole process that inspired a lot of this work is to see, know, let go, and enjoy. And when you get familiar with this mechanism of contraction and release, that in any given moment, at the core of what's going on, underneath all the thoughts, the emotions, the feelings, the sensations, any of our pain, our trauma, or whatever, we're either contracting and closing or we're releasing and opening at any given moment. We might be a little bound up in our tissues, makes it hard for the body to let go, but we can do it, and doing a lot of opening with the body can assist that. We might be really stuck in the mind, and so developing these qualities of loving kindness. Can I breathe in a way that it's like I'm receiving loving kindness? Can I catalyze that by softening my eyes, letting that softening spread? Can I stir up more of that sense of warmth by having a sense of appreciative joy? In every moment I find release, I am appreciating it with sincerity. The more we do this, the more we can absorb into this process of release, which allows us to become more and more surrendered to this process, which allows this release to spread and to deepen in quite a profound way, because we let go of trying and striving and obsessing about trying to get rid of the thoughts and emotions, trying to find, trying to, have a perfectly strong, flexible, perfect pain-free body, or trying to, get rid of this tension, and try to make things go away. Because in trying to do the right thing, trying to do the right technique, this trying, this striving is, we might say, an incorrect effort. We want to apply a sort of effortless effort, we might say. We begin with getting a handle around the process, but once we do, we can perceive contraction in that moment, soften towards it. And all of a sudden the breath opens up, feels deeper, feels smoother. All of a sudden the mass of the body, the breath, the energy drops into the waist, drops down into the tummy. Not because we tried to breathe a certain way, but because we let go of this, holding ourselves, distorting ourselves in a certain way. We let go. We, who we are, this knowing quality, perceived, release, created more spaciousness. It's quite important in the beginning to feel this contraction release in the body so it's tangible. We want to train this process of release in as tangible and as real a way as possible. So we use any posture possible. Anything you can do comfortably at first, but something that pushes you, because stretch and pressure are important forms of feedback, somatically speaking. So when we stretch something, if I'm holding, it will not stretch. And if I with too much intention, if I just try to stretch, there's kind of a glass ceiling. But if I release into an extension, if I soften my flesh around the bones by softening my awareness inwards, letting my attention penetrate into the body with this sense of warmth, ease, calm, appreciating, shoulders releasing, that's nice. Oh, look at it spread down my arm, that's nice. And in Dissolve Yoga with the sort of robot arms pose, just quite an interesting feedback that begins to occur in the body. The more you open the body, the more deeply connected it becomes through softening, opening, releasing, finding connection. That as soon as we begin to put the mind in the body, when the mind is more and more calm, when we're softening, finding more of that loving kindness and appreciative joy, soon as we put the mind in, there's this shift in the nervous system. The nerves open, the fascia opens. And then as we begin to say, raise the arms up by releasing the shoulders and settling, sinking the elbows. As soon as I do so and find this openness and stretch through my arms, my torso is releasing and rearranging. I've released down into my seat, into my pelvis, just by sinking my elbows down. My pelvis has like sunk into my chair and my spine is opening and extending. And I didn't try to do that. That is the natural process of release occurring through my body, through putting the right kind of attention into my body. So the attention went inwards, this open, spacious, attentive quality, this listening quality went inwards, and the body mirrored it. And this brings me to a little chat on somatic empathy, maybe. Feel free to ask some questions if you're watching and you're interested to lead the conversation in any particular direction. But the body tends to mirror what we place our attention on. It's quite interesting. Thank you. It is a bit interesting trying to gaze at the camera. I guess my tendency is to like have someone to look at while I'm speaking. Let me know if this is better. Thank you for the feedback. I'll try to soften my eyes in relation to the camera lens. Thank you very much for the feedback there. Cool. Thanks. This is why I'm doing this. Once again, not a pro. I'm good at what I do in terms of all this practice and sharing with others, doing body work, doing yoga. Not so good at the tech stuff and live streaming. So yeah, somatic empathy. Somatic empathy. Very, very interesting stuff. Our body will mirror what we place our attention on. This is why listening skill is important when it comes to body work. The better a body worker, like a massage therapist, a cranial sacral therapist, the better listening skill someone has, the more that they're emptying themselves out. In the same way that if you're listening to someone, ideally your mind is not thinking of the next thing you're going to say. It's not continually jumping from thought to thought or, trying to come up with something. It's receptive. It's becoming still, becoming empty, becoming open, and taking in. It's processing. It's allowing things to adapt, to change, and you are in your mental space, in the quality of your nervous system, and if you're receptive and connected into your body, and you're releasing. Even when I'm doing this, it's like, my body is opening, becoming released. And then if you're in that receptive listening state, your body is mirroring at a nervous system level, at an energetic level, whatever is going on in that person, or even what's going on in an environment, what's going on in an object, even. And so when we begin to practice emptying ourselves, humbling ourselves enough, and this humbling, this word is this releasing of our sense of self, this clinging to our own identity, our own self-importance, you could say, in a way, even though we are practicing with this, in relation to our body, in relation to our hearts, our minds, our being. to be able to do this, there's really a dropping of our ego, a dropping of our sense of self, our self-importance, in a way that we can let go of whatever we're internally holding on to in our inner environment, and we become still and receptive. I often invite people to begin practicing this by either in a quiet space or in nature somewhere is really nice, to begin to listen to silence and feel the stillness that arises internally in the mental space, the potential lack of thoughts, as our attention is on this sense of stillness and spaciousness. And the mental space, instead of being contracted on a thought or caught up in sort of this, if we're a very visual person, we might have images in relation to memories and things that have happened that day or something. And we're continually, it's like like a television station that's flicking channels, this thing, this thing, this thing. And our mental space tends to form to thought forms. It mirrors thought forms. And then in the nervous system, our feelings, our sensations tend to mirror that. So it's just like if we were watching something and something violent happens, like on the TV, and someone gets hurt, it's like we cringe. It's like, oh, unless you're a sociopath or something, and you have no feeling. We respond to that. We see someone get hurt, and we can feel it. It's like in our gut, in our shoulders tighten. Something happens where we contract, we cringe because we are empathizing. There's this level of somatic empathy naturally that we've been paying attention to that. So therefore, our nervous system mirrors that. And this is why, if our attention is on someone, if we're listening to someone, we are naturally going to have this interaction where our nervous system mirrors that. And I found it to be very profound that in the dissolve body work, I've practiced a few different types of body work, myofascial release and acupressure and different forms of body work, usually sort of an Eastern or Asian style of body work. But a lot of things that had to do with fascia and neurofascial release and nervous system regulation through physical manipulation. But it's very interesting that a lot of body workers, people who work with bodies or interact with people, therapists, they will become exhausted, or they will begin to take on the sort of symptoms and the emotional qualities, the thought forms, you could say, the ways of thinking that their clients are stuck on or are experiencing. And very, very profound, very powerful to be able to release and deeply listen with an embodied quality of release, so that you can pick up on what's happening with someone at this level of the mind-body interaction, that they are contracting or experiencing some sort of tension, some sort of stress in a certain area of the body, or really in how their attention, how their mind is interacting with that area of the body, which may have to do with their traumas, their past, or certain experiences, or they got into a car accident and were injured, or something happened yesterday and it stressed them out. The ability to experience that, to have this sense of calm abiding, clear seeing, sense of compassion, which is this more than empathy, and you could say a profound sympathy, this understanding, this clarity that arises through stillness, through release, through this quality of listening that is developed when we begin to saturate our attention and look inwards, turn the light of our awareness inwards, and begin to experience ourselves as this open, spacious, knowing quality. If we can rest in that knowing quality, if we can practice this listening skill of remaining receptive and spacious and taking in without reaction, then we can actually allow not only ourselves to become aware of the way in which our body is beginning to mirror someone else, but we can remain spacious and released enough and restful and calm and regulated enough that that person will begin to also begin to let go. of whatever it is that they're experiencing. So something that some people say in sort of the new age scene I've seen, or just in general, is when you hold space for someone, right? Someone's gone through something very difficult and they need someone to talk to. It's more importantly than talking about that thing and sort of rehashing the story and talking about how they feel about it or what they're thinking about it or their experience. Really, what's important in terms of getting them back to center, getting them back to a state of harmony and balance, like, you know, at a really deep level, is that they need someone to listen to them and someone to mirror them and someone to facilitate and help just naturally, intrinsically guide themselves back towards who and what they are through that process of release. And it's that listening, that calm, still, receptive listening that really profoundly assists that process. And whether it's just in a conversation with someone, and more powerfully, it might be just that maybe it's a little chat that they need, but then it's like an embrace there. It's just, you know, it's like you have a hug with that person and you just hang out. Some of the most powerful healing at that level isn't when they're talking about the thing, but when they're just able to be. They're just able to come back to themselves, to land in themselves, where they were sort of like off in outer space before. They were caught up in the experience, right? They were bound up, they were contracted, and they begin to release, they begin to soften again, and come back down to earth, come back down into their body, you know, find refuge within themselves again. And you can help someone do that in a very profound way through this type of skill by being a refuge to yourself, first and foremost, by having this foundation laid of this deep embodied quality of release that is nourished through listening. Hoping that's all making sense. But it's very interesting that this level of somatic empathy, I've done quite a lot of practice in nature. Your nervous system can mirror a tree. There's a lot of practices in Taoism, in Qigong practices where you're placing your awareness on a tree, and, you know, even just now, like just knowing that feeling, it really picks up it organizes my torso in a certain way. It really opens up my body in a certain way. Even just having the memory of placing my awareness inside a tree, you know, or knowing that there's a certain tree around. And there's practices where you place your awareness in water and your body begins to mimic the movement of the water, the movement of the waves. And it's through this letting go and still remaining stable in your connection with the body. There has to be awareness of the body. You're not kind of like letting go and drifting away and dissociating. Some people might assume that you're placing some awareness in something else and dissociating, but that will often lead to a certain level of delusion. It'll lead to imagining something. And in this practice, to be able to listen, to be able to release, you cannot do it while imagining. You cannot do it while thinking about doing it. You have to be releasing. And when you release, there's not so much thinking going on. Thoughts tend to fade because the mind becomes very spacious, very open. In the same way that when you listen, your mind tends to empty out. And like I said about stillness, silence. If you're listening to silence, if you kind of, it's like if you were walking in the woods and you think you hear something, it might not be that even you're afraid of, like, you know, oh, it's a bear or something, but like, oh, I heard something. Or I smelt something even. There's this curious, open awareness. All of a sudden your mental space goes from like, do, I'm walking, I'm thinking, I'm doing stuff too. It's alert, it's awake and aware and vast and open because your awareness itself, the mental space, is reaching out into your environment and trying to pick up on every little signal. So in that way, it's a very natural phenomenon for the mental space to open that maybe humans tend to forget about. We look at a lot of screens, we're in a lot of houses, we're in a box, we're looking at boxes. It's very, I think, injurious to the mind in some ways to be stuck on screens too much, to be stuck inside too much. We all tend to, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us are beginning to realize that these days. But what does that do to the mind? And that quality of mind, of that trapped, confined, contracted quality of mind, what does it do energetically? It tightens the chi, tightens the nerves, tighten the fascia, the tissues, connective tissues, and everything. They tighten, and habitually, we're walking around like this, and we might not even know, but doesn't it feel bad? It's like, doesn't this feel like crap, right? If the mind is stuck in a box, if the tissues are trapped, doesn't it feel, I'm doing this on purpose to accentuate it, right? But, doesn't that feel better? To let go. Drop your shoulders. Let the weight, let the breath settle and sink. Soften the eyes, soften the awareness, soften the shoulders even more. Notice that it's better. Appreciate it. If it feels good and it makes you feel good and it makes you smile, soften into a soft smile and keep directing that warm, enjoyable attention inwards and keep nourishing life. Part of this chat was supposed to be that I've got some upcoming classes where I'm going to do a 4-week series. If anybody wants to join in, we'll do a 4-week series for a small group, just presenting Dissolve Yoga and doing some meditation stuff, diving into the body opening process and how Dissolve Yoga facilitates that, how to approach stretches, yoga postures, some standing practices, sitting practice, how to do some body opening practice to help you sit more comfortably, so that body opening process aids the process of internal release. And what I mean by internal release is that the opening, the release process translates to the mind, allows the mind to release, so that we can rest in this knowing quality. We can become deeply released. We can surrender. Because when we do so, it is intensely enjoyable. And that's why all of the meditators and the yogis and the whatever people, spiritual people, they talk about bliss, right? Talk about rapture, they talk about bliss, piti in Thai Buddhism, Theravada. It's this supremely enjoyable experience of being so deeply at peace because all of the stuff is out of the way. All the stuff that distorts your perception, makes you view things in a way that the lenses of your perception are tainted with anger, frustration, stress, sadness, grief, depression, anxiety. All of those things are this. Right? You're distorting the way you see things. You're not seeing things clearly. You're not feeling connected to the body, or you're not perceiving release. And therefore you cannot let go. You cannot surrender. Therefore you cannot rest in who you are, who you really are, not who you think you are, not who you feel like you are, not your like, I gotta, follow my feelings and be my authentic self sort of thing. Your real deep down authentic self, who and what you really are, which is indescribable. People talk about the soul and spirit and God and all that stuff. It's beyond words. All religions have some sort of system of practice connected to them, some sort of path they walk that leads you through living a life which nourishes the core, the cause, the source of life itself. But there is within each one of us not the seed of a thought or the seed of an emotion, the seed of our being, which is part of this ineffable thing, this source of our being, the divine, you might say, which is, to experience this is blissful. And that's where we want to go with our practice. to release so deeply, to be so stable, to have such calm and clarity and insight into this process of release and the cause of our suffering and the distortion of our perception, which is this clinging and contraction, and have this skill of listening so refined that we can perceive at increasingly subtle levels from the body through to the mind, to our push and pull on our awareness itself, even when the body is very released, when the mind is very released and spacious. When we step back into this knowing quality, we can feel even just the subtle pushing and pulling on our awareness itself. There's this, you know, a seed of thought, is trying to arise. And we feel a little push, a little pull. And we have the ability through this clear seeing and this calm abiding. Vipassana, right? People talk about Vipassana, shamatha. What that is to be able to have this type of insight, this type of clarity, where we're so at ease, so grounded, so restful, yet so awake, so aware, that even the beginning of a potential seed of thought is recognized in this spacious knowing quality, this mental space where like I could let the awareness entertain whatever that seed's going to be, but no, it's too good. It's too good right here. I'm being present with the divine right now. Nah. Obviously thoughtless, but there is this thoughtless awareness, right, where we are devoid of hindrance. And because we are devoid of any hindrance in this expressing of our being, then there's this radiant peace which comes forth, and we just surrender to it. Because once you feel it, once you experience it, it's so good that it just kicks the crap out of all your stuff, right? At first, we have to have this bit of intention to start doing the practice, especially if we just wake up in the morning, we got to get into the body and maybe use the body to, we open up the body and we want to go through this process, use our yoga, our stretches, our Tai Chi, whatever it is, maybe some basic Qigong stuff or some standing practices. We open up the body, we loosen up, we warm up, and these are like warm-ups for release. Once the body is very released and it begins to translate more and more to the mind, we might just do our seated practice. We sit, and the body is so radiant with release that it translates to the mind. The mind just begins to let go. Maybe on a challenging day, some thoughts, some feelings come around, and that's our practice then, is that we are perceiving more and more space as we get good at our practice, that, oh, there's the thought in my mental space. I can feel the clinging, the craving, the contraction that has led me to become aware of that and feed that seed of thought which created this thought form. So now I have this train of thought going on. I'm going to become aware that I am noticing that. I am witnessing that. I am aware of that. As I soften my attention, and when we get good at softening our attention towards whatever is in our awareness, then that thought tends to fade more and more. The space grows. The spaciousness takes over, and then we become absorbed in that quality of spaciousness. The mind begins to be able to rest. And this is kind of the secret to concentration and focus. A lot of people, when they begin to meditate, I for sure know when I tried to begin to meditate years and years ago, it's very difficult, being more of the sort of hyperactive, hypersensitive child. growing up into the teenage years, super distracted, but when I became interested in meditation, then it was very difficult to stop my thoughts. And some people these days, they're like, oh, meditation isn't about stopping your thoughts. And man, maybe in the beginning, it's not about trying to stop your thoughts, but with practice, your thoughts will definitely stop. But you can't try to stop them. You can't fight with your thoughts. That's where the whole positive thinking and affirmation stuff comes along, and people are trying to like push away certain thoughts or like fight back against them. But you're always fighting and running away. So it's still fight or flight, right? We're still holding on. We're still contracting. We might really try to contract and hold on to some positive thoughts or try to visualize and imagine nicer things. But we're not going to go any deeper. We're not going to find who and what we are through that type of practice, right? It's not going to lead anywhere. It might be, in the short term, helpful psychologically. We might bounce off of a few. I think it's more potent to utilize somatic memory. The fact that we remember in our bodies certain experiences, again, going back to somatic empathy, that the body will mirror and like reshape itself and rearrange itself and reflect certain experiences that we've had. If we bring up the sort of tactile sensation of them, like what is it like to be held or loved? What is it like to love? Right? What is it like to hold a child? It's a really good one. What is it like to hold a baby or like cuddle a puppy, And sometimes when we're breathing, sometimes brother Andy Mack, he talks about like when we're breathing, like breathe, like you're breathing in melty chocolate, like melting honey, melting butter or something intensely enjoyable, and really become immersed in that sense of warmth and enjoyment. It can be something very simple, but it's this reorienting of not just psychologically, but in this relationship between mind and body, energetically, you could say. The quality of our being shifts as we reorient towards something that is more in harmony with who and what we really are, so that we kind of loosen up or warm up or open that pathway to be able to look within. It's very difficult to look within if we're carrying like ill will and hate and like rage towards ourselves or anyone else. That's why in every spiritual path, every tradition, there is this moral and ethical framework of doing good, being good, living life in a way that nourishes life, right? Be a source of life and love unto others, so that you yourself can be oriented towards, aligned with who and what you really are. Because who and what we really are is the source of all goodness, all beauty, all love, right? And connecting with that is the source of grace. You could say we experience that grace through surrender, because we're letting go of that which obstructs us from living from that, from experiencing that directly, and it has to be experienced directly. And it's this reorientation that's important. We can't pretend, the imagination, the visualization, the positive affirmations, they are pretending to be something that we are not in the moment. We have to truly recognize through nudging ourselves experientially in as tactile and real a way as possible in that direction, until we drop in, we land, we surrender. We've released enough of those layers that all of a sudden we've gone from layer 10 stressed out, as stressed as we can possibly be, caught up in all the turmoil, caught up in the trauma, the psychosis, the whatever, the anxiety, the depression, we start to learn to soften a little bit. We go to 9 to 8, down through these layers of the bullseye, so to speak, towards the 0 point. We stop having to talk about it so much because we can let go. We don't have to numb ourselves. We don't have to fight or run away. And these last few layers, we dive into the body enough to open it, to allow it to be stable and opened. And, we have this sort of a sense of somatic comfort and ease. And the more that everything becomes balanced, the breath becomes enjoyable, our quality of mind itself becomes enjoyable, it becomes warm, soft, at ease, calm and clear, still and stable. All of a sudden we will touch down. At some point, we will touch, maybe even just for a moment, maybe just glance the surface level of it, because then it's its own little process of surrender, to go really deep into that, to fully absorb into that. But at least skirting along the edges of it, or dipping our toes into that 0 point, being totally at ease. No thoughts. No real, when I say no emotions, people tend to be like, oh, but emotions are so powerful, and what are you, numb? You're a nihilist or something? And it's like, no, there's something deeper than emotion. Joy isn't an emotion, right? Happiness, glee, mania, excitement, all those things are an emotion. Humor can open us up and help us get there, but it's not this external comfort or some sort of amusement. That's something that comes and goes. It's this deep peace and this deep enjoyment, this equanimity, this tranquility, this bliss that arises from touching, diving into, surrendering into who and what we really are. And that is the most enjoyable thing that anyone can ever experience, for sure. For sure. No ifs, ands, or buts, no doubt about it. I'm sure there's probably something that I was going to talk about that I haven't. If anyone who's watching, while there's still some folks watching, if you're still following me, I have a fly flying around in here, feeling that slightest contraction of, oh, get that fly out of my room. But if anyone has a question before we go, feel free. I'll be here for a few more minutes, maybe just resting in stillness. I will try sometime this week to do another live stream, maybe focusing a little bit more on some of the body opening stuff and how to embody this work. Thanks for the feedback. Well, namaste, whoever you are. Thanks for the feedback, Jordan. Great Dhamma talk. In future live streams, try to do better at looking at the camera. I'm kind of looking at the chat. I'm looking at my live stream. I'm seeing for people messaging me and asking questions and stuff. Would the online class benefit fellow practitioners, fellow dissolve therapy practitioners? For sure, especially if you have either just began your journey, you're still in the process, you just want to refine your skills a little bit, you want to have someone to practice with, get a little bit of insight from. Yeah, for sure. If you want to dive into, I don't know if you've done the dissolve yoga stuff, or you just want, if you're a practitioner already, really cool to have someone else perceive how you're working. If you've been doing this type of practice for a while, you do get more clarity and insight on how and where the mind and the body are interacting. It can be very helpful to have someone be like, as you're doing this, I can see you're nodding your hip, soften, soften in this way, soften right there. There it is. Because you can begin to perceive release. You can kind of see the shape of someone's mind and witness that process of release occurring, and it can be great to get feedback on that. Yeah, and if you're just a practitioner and you haven't done the dissolve yoga yet, that's part of the type of thing that this would be beneficial for someone who's partway through the process, is to get into more of the body opening work and to dive into that and get some feedback on your practice. Yeah, it'd be good for people that have either done the foundations, or they're just getting into it, or they want to dive a little bit deeper and have some intense practice sessions doing some body opening with the dissolve yoga. So, yeah, all of the above. It'd be a good time. And yeah, we'll be focusing on taking the dissolve yoga, sort of bridging the gap between the dissolve yoga practice, doing some work with the senses, uh, potentially also doing some of the work with the elements. And we're working on this awareness of the four elements a little bit, and how all of these things help bridge that gap between the harmonizing the mind and body and allowing it to feed into, to nourish our meditation practice. That'll be the whole focus. Hmm. Hmm. I wonder what these little crowns mean. Hmm. What does this mean? Oh, top fans. Cool. You're my fans. 70 XP. You guys get experience? Is this like a video game? Cool. Blur 405. Who are you? Is that W Master? Oh, same person? Cool. I'm just like seeing who's in the chat, who's my fan. Oh, thank you for the feedback. My tech setup could probably be better, but it's good enough. And I want to do a little bit more of this type of thing. I'm definitely more at ease talking at length like this than trying to make like hooky like shorts and stuff. I've really been working at how I present things, how I talk about things enough that maybe I can like make some videos that kind of get out there a little bit more, content that spreads around a little bit more. But it's not what I don't know. I definitely don't have like a type of an advertiser marketing mentality, so trying to adapt myself to the type of content that the kids might like these days, I don't know. I don't know. But these long form sort of live stream things are more they reflect my nature and who I am a little bit more. Yeah, yeah, tapping into somatic memory as opposed to ideas about things. It allows us to reflect upon the quality of the mind and the body and how they're relating, as opposed to getting stuck in the layer of the mind in terms of thoughts, visualizations, imaginations, because the somatic memory is real, tactile, tangible. Mm-hmm. And I've always been very fascinated by the somatic empathy and how the body tends to mirror things. It's quite amazing that the attention can be placed on something, and the whole orientation, the quality of the mind, the quality of the body, especially with deepened practice and experience, the whole experience can just completely flip and shift and reorganize in relation to a stone or water or a tree or anything like that. When you talk about it, it almost seems like kind of like, nature practice, like shamanic stuff or something like that, but it's a lot more natural. I think it tends to happen for people at an unconscious level, like all the time. Um, but having clarity and awareness of it, and the ability to consciously rest the awareness, and soften it in relation to something, allowing your mind and body to reorganize in relation to it. It's a good training tool. It's a very good training tool. And I find it's helped me kind of wipe the slate clean. Can help bodywork practitioners who have tended towards the picking up of other people's stuff somatically and energetically, like feeling other people's pain. You have this sort of cultivated flexibility and ability to reorient and adapt in the awareness and how the mind and the body are interacting, so that you don't pick up on someone else's stuff and become like stuck with it. Like you walk away and then you're in pain for a week after like massaging someone who's there for a week, which is, again, if any body workers watch this, I will toot the horn of dissolve therapy as even an adjunct skill, which can add to your practice and the way you go about working with people, because the depth of release that you can offer them, even at the physical level, is quite profound. But the whole basis of the practice is that you are deeply releasing as you are putting the pressure onto the body. Even the way you're touching the client is that you are releasing your entire body. My bones slide through my flesh, and then the pressure is placed on someone, not by pushing into them or using my weight or using my structure. And there's a lot of good elements of that in body work that people use. They learn how to use their weight and their structure and everything, but we might apply a little bit of that, use our weight and sort of use the right structure of our body, but we're releasing inside of the shape, so that as we release, we can listen to wherever we're contacting the body and give our client the awareness of, as they are releasing, because we're releasing, we're listening, we can feel the release occur as we're connecting with them, and go, you feel that? You're releasing. Good. Right when they soften, we give them feedback. We give them the clarity of, you feel that? Good job. Good stuff. And they will notice and they will make the connection that their awareness went where we were placing pressure, that they softened because we're cueing them. Okay, let's soften the eyes. Let's soften our awareness. Let's breathe in a way that's enjoyable. And as the awareness touches that area, it softens, and we have this levels of release going deeper and deeper. And they will experience the quality of their mind shifting. Their thoughts drift away. They'll become very aware if their mind does jump off somewhere, and then they have to soften and bring it back to what's happening, to the release process. But then by the time they get off the table, they are blissed out, super at peace, super at ease, very comfortable in the body, very comfortable in the mind. And that is a wonderful thing to share with somebody. Like, holy, just wonderful. And even if you're doing other forms of body work, you're a cranial sacral practitioner, that training, the training that we do with Dissolve Yoga and in the body opening work and the meditation, it will refine and deepen and enhance your listening skill, so that when you're doing some sort of method, technique, or you're massaging, you can do so with more release, and your somatic empathy will be, for one, it can become more clarified if you are picking up on something, but it doesn't stick to you. That's really, really cool. Is that when people do have stuff that's really deeply held in their body, and we might not release through everything in the first section, but we go as deep as we can. But the stuff that they are holding on to energetically, the way they are patterned, doesn't stick to you because your patterning is release. You are connecting with them and engaging in the whole process, deeply releasing the whole time, deeply releasing. So you are released, you are emptied, you are, and it's like water off a duck's back. You're aware of, oh yeah, all that stuff in the hips. Oh yeah, related to, oh, so much of this in the mind, and maybe if you're very sensitive, you have other awarenesses come up or whatever, but it doesn't really matter because whatever you're aware of is going to untangle and unbind itself because of how the process is approached. And anything that could be influencing you is just release. It just doesn't stick. Uh, which is the whole point of the training. If you are released and if you're softening towards everything that arises, any potential stress, any potential tension, any challenge, you're softening towards it, deeply releasing in relation to it. And you learn to do that with others, which is so cool. So, family members, your kids, people around you that are working, whether you're physically contacting them or not, your experience of your environment, stuff is arising, challenges, stress. Well, even if we get caught up in it, and we're all human, we're not enlightened, we're not perfect. So, you know, your kids are going to get to you, work's going to get to you, physical stress, tension, pain is going to get to you, and then you notice, I'm holding right there. That little thing in the back of my mind. Ooh, that thing that person said, it really subtly did catch me, you know? So, I'm going like that, really subtly, unconsciously, way back here somewhere, or way down in here somewhere. And as soon as the awareness goes, because we've trained the awareness to perceive and to nourish, release, to find spaciousness, to enjoy it, as soon as the awareness goes to wherever it is, that little thought, I was tightening the back of my neck. Oh, there we go. Cool. Oh, my liver feels weird, that area of my liver. Oh, okay. Oh, felt a little anxiety, felt a little self-conscious. Ah, back to ease. Like that. And that's a really cool thing about this. It's like there's a lot of facets of the practice we can use to train ourselves to become more skillful and to embody this quality of release. But once we really get it going on and we've done some of the work and we got a good foundation laid, if we do get caught up somewhere, we have some layer of like, oh, I wasn't aware of that, holding on to this or that over here or over there, or oh, that was a new situation, or that was particularly intense. Wow, that got to me. We don't need to fight it. We don't need to try to desperately find our way out somehow, or go like seeking for like, oh, how do I solve and how do I get rid of this? How do I let go? It's there. Like that. See, know, let go, enjoy. Yes. Yeah, Jordan. Yahoo, woohoo. Yeah. Yeah. More release is an exciting thought. It's an incredibly enjoyable thought. I will tell you, it's an even better experience. So, yeah, if you want to deepen your practice, join in. Yeah, cool. All right. Hour and a half. About that's pretty good. Last call for questions. I'll probably hop off in a minute here. Unless anyone else has any last thoughts to share. Few enjoyable breaths to finish it off. Yeah. You're very, very welcome. This is my favorite thing to do. It's so nice being able to free yourself like that. And knowing it's like beyond conviction. If you experience this enough, that's where the that's where the insight, the wisdom, panya comes from, is coming back to yourself again and again and again, and knowing that in every other person, all the political stuff and everything just becomes a ridiculous, interestingly ridiculous thing, and all the drama in the world, and all the personal stuff, all the stuff in other people. It's like, wow, they're all doing this. I have compassion. I understand what it's like. I have suffered, and I know that suffering, and I know release. And so it's more than empathy, more than sympathy. You have compassion, you have that insight that, wow, they are suffering because they are holding on, clinging, contracting, distorting, confusing themselves. They lack clarity, they lack this peace, they don't know themselves. I want to share this with them. I want to become more of it so that it kind of bleeds out into my surroundings, into other people. I want to share it with my children. I want to share it with my partner. I want to share it with those I interact with every day. I want to create environments around it. I want to share it on a live stream and hope that many people watch it and they can feel what I'm saying, that they're not just thinking about it, but they feel it, they experience it. And I wish you all the best in your practice. And I wish you this, deep grace of surrender, and yeah, all the blessings that it brings. Mm, it's the good stuff. It's the good stuff. Thank you, Jordan. So funny. Anyone watching, this other guy, Jordan, this other practitioner, lives in my hometown, or at least close to it. You're from my hometown, I think. So funny. The same name as me, from my hometown. I don't live there right now, but it's just so funny. All right. Have an excellent evening, everybody. Take care. Enjoy yourselves. All health and goodness and beauty to you. Ending the stream. I'll do another one soon. I'll post about it sometime. Take care.